All right, I just want to also note that this meeting will be recorded and placed on the informational website on the district webpage at ferndaleschools.org/vote. So if you want to refer back to this video, it will also be on our YouTube channel and you can find it there as well. Dr. Bazzi, go ahead and get started whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, good evening, members of residents of Oak Park. We appreciate your time this evening, and we want to share some information about the new Ferndale Lower Elementary that will be built at the CASA site, and how some of the city-owned land at Jackson Park will be impacted, and the current deed restriction that currently lies with that land. Bill, if you can go to the next slide, please. So basically, if you're familiar with the site, currently CASA sits on the land that is shared with Jackson Park. Currently, that's the Center for Advanced Studies in the Arts. This program will not be going away. It will be relocated to the current Ferndale Lower building, as CASA is a much smaller program and is only really utilized for half of the day. Ferndale Lower Elementary currently is about 100 years old. It's turning 100 in 2021, and it's served the district very well. But it's time for a new state-of-the-art elementary school that will serve hopefully our students for another 100 years. Currently, we own. The school district owns about 7 acres at that property. What we're doing is we're working with the city to utilize portions of Jackson Park. So that would give us a little bit over 11 acres of land to build that new elementary school. That will certainly help us maintain the CASA program while the elementary school is being built. And then when the new elementary school is being built, we'll be able to then relocate students to the current Ferndale Lower building. We're hoping for this building to open in the fall of 2023. It will be a brand new construction, state-of-the-art facility that will service our K-2 students. Currently, we have about 500 students at K-2. And so this will allow us to have our programming at that site. Next slide. So why do we have you here this evening? There is a deed restriction on the land at Jackson Park, which means unless you're building single family dwellings, you can't construct anything on that site. You can't construct a playground, a parking lot, a school building, anything to that effect. As we stated, when we passed the bond, we passed it with the intention of utilizing the 7 acres that the school district currently owns, but in ensuring that we have the proper amount of green space, playground space, functionality to ensure traffic flow. We're really hoping to be able to utilize the full 11 acres so that we can really ensure that students and the community have a space that is not crammed into the 7 acres. So again, the deed restriction is from a really long time ago. And the way that we are able to lift the deed restriction is we received a list of addresses from Oakland County for any home on the Oak Park subdivision plat. So homes in that area, basically we have to send kind of a ballot that's been approved by attorneys where residents say, yes, I'm in favor of the deed restriction, or no, I'm not in favor of the deed restriction. We have to obtain 50% plus one homeowner to be able to lift that deed restriction. There's not a formal election or things of that nature. As we discussed, the construction of the new elementary school at CASA was approved by the voters in the March 2020 bond. So it's not a formal vote. To lift the deed restriction, we follow the process that's outlined by the Registrar of Deeds, and then hopefully are able to get that lifted. So as I said, we can't, even if we said we're going to keep it as playground space, we can't even do that at this point. We can't really make any changes to the land without the lifting of that deed restriction. Next slide. So again, very simple. What happens if you vote yes? We'll be able to utilize the entire site plan to create a cohesive site for a brand new elementary school. A no vote would limit our space and our optimization of the design of the new elementary school. So again, the deed restriction only applies to the 4 acres that the city owns. The deed restriction does not apply to the land that the school owns. Again, we want to be able to utilize that full acreage so that we can, again, ensure nice parks, playgrounds, and spaces for our students while ensuring the best, traffic flow. Obviously, by an elementary school, we know arrival and dismissal times can be a challenge. That's no different on that we see. You're very close to Pinecrest, so if you've ever tried to get home when Lower is leaving, you've probably had some difficulty. Again, it will be better because currently Ferndale Lower at its current location sits on about 3.5 acres of land. So very, very restricted, and that's why we see a lot of the traffic flow issues. Next slide. So this is a very, it's a very raw rendering of what could be at that particular site. We are building a 90,000 square foot facility. And this shows us if we don't utilize the L-shaped piece where the ball field is, shows you the part that's currently owned by the city. We've had discussions with the city for the past year about the land in public meetings, at site planning meetings, to discuss that. We understand that the residents want to continue to have spaces to enjoy with their families, their pets, and things of that nature. So this is again, this is not how the school would look. It will look a lot nicer, obviously, and we're still early on in the design phase. But that just gives you an idea of how that limits our space in terms of parking and flexibility in terms of bus loop and things like this. That additional land will allow us to have more green space as well as better traffic flow. Next slide. So what will be built specifically on Jackson Park? The city has requested as part of the closing document for the purchase agreement, which we've discussed but we have not signed, is we really will ensure that residents as well as the city will have representation as we design that space. So we value your input as we utilize Jackson Park. Our architect will give us multiple options on how to best lay out the school with all of the facilities that are needed for the new Ferndale Elementary in terms of park, playgrounds, drop-off, pickup loops, walking paths, those types of things. So we really want to be able to enhance the entire space, and we will maintain the space to ensure that it always looks nice, it's always usable by residents. All of our facilities are really for our community. We don't limit use on playgrounds or things of that nature. So we really want this building to be something that hopefully will enhance your property values, something that your families can utilize, and really be a benefit to the Oak Park community. Next slide. So a lot of questions have been asked about, well, how about the ball fields, because that would be removed. The city of Oak Park, and again, Kimberly, if I misspeak, please jump in at any point. But there have been discussions to make improvements at their other baseball fields that are very close by, and amenities that are close by to ensure that residents still have a place to play ball. So again, they're going to be working on their master plan in 2022 that will address this more thoroughly. But again, Oak Park values their park space, and has been really persistent to ensure that we maximize our green space at the new site to ensure that's not lost for our community. So that's really it in a nutshell. And we really wanted to use a large portion of the time we had today to give you time to ask questions and hopefully alleviate any concerns that you might have. So if you have a question, just unmute yourself and ask away, please.
There's a question in the chat, Danya, that is, if all the land is used, are there any layout drawings for how that design might look?
Tom, do you want to help me with that, or Doris? Today we preliminary started looking at some mapping. We will have those. I don't know that we have those fully developed at this point.
Yeah, we really don't. We are just excuse me. We are just completing the process of programming the building, which means we've defined all the spaces that are in the building, et cetera. And now we're just starting to do some layouts of the building. It's not going to, I mean, the layouts of the building are going to be, more architectural in nature, how we develop the classrooms, et cetera, et cetera. But the building itself is roughly the size of the building you see on that graphic that Danya showed, that 90,000 square feet. The real difference is where we put it on the site. Can we slide it over a little bit to maximize the use of the site? So the building itself is just starting the design.
The question is about green space, and we're going to maximize the amount of green space, really going to be respectful of the tree line that borders a lot of the houses along a strip you see where there's trees that embark on that. So again, our plan is to have, it's a K2 building. So the plan is to have a lot of outdoor space for our students, significantly more, double the amount of space that we currently have at the current site, at the current Ferndale Lower. So what if
I have a question.
Oh yeah, go on, please.
The deed restriction. Why was the deed restriction put on there?
It's been on there a very long time, and it was just to limit it to being, single family homes. It's been on the books for quite some time.
Who put it on there and why? I need the why. Who and why is what it is.
Yeah, I don't have the answer to that why. It was long before I've come. I don't know if anyone has an answer to that. I assume to keep it residential, but that's an assumption.
Yeah, I also want to add that what we're going to be doing is I'm writing questions down. If we don't have an answer for you this evening, we will be trying to run down as many answers as we can and then putting them on that frequently asked questions at the link you see there. So that will be updated frequently in the coming days. So again, if we don't have an answer for you, we can certainly try to figure it out and get it on that frequently asked questions document.
And where is that at? I mean, it took me a while to find this link.
Sure. Are you at the website? If you can't see it on your screen now, it's ferndaleschools.org/.
There, been there,
Yeah,
and
yep.
I will not install Zoom.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine, sir. But that's where that website is where you'll go to see the frequently asked questions document.
Where's that at? It's on. I'm looking at the deed restriction vote. Is it on that one, or where is it at?
Yeah, yes, sir. That's if you just keep scrolling down there, it's all questions and answers on there, and we'll update that to add any additional questions that we get this evening that aren't currently on there.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to know who put that deed restriction on there and why. And it sounds to me like somebody wanted it to be that way.
Tanya, I can, answer it a little bit. We can't say who did it for sure. Typically, it's whoever developed that subdivision will put deed restrictions on that they want. For instance, in my particular subdivision, we have deed restrictions that regulate the size of the home or how many acres of land it needs to be on and things like that. So it's typically the developer. This was done way back in the 40s, I believe. So I can't tell you for sure who it was. Danya, maybe the attorneys can look on the deeds and see who filed it originally.
Yeah, you'd think it would be on the deed. Okay.
Yeah, we'll look into it.
All right. Well, I just had that question.
Hi, Daniel. Maybe, at the end here, we can go through how to get to the site and actually just clicking the link just to show people who might need that, where to find what they're looking for. Just
you might want to put that quick link on the home page of Ferndale Schools. There was no click on the front page. If you go to ferndaleschools.org, there's no link to this meeting. I had to look it up in the quick links or the search.
So if you click on that, as one of the other gentlemen just mentioned, if you click on that link in the presentation and it takes you to ferndaleschools.org/deed, you'll go to this website.
Yeah.
If you scroll down, you'll see many of the questions that are being asked.
I see a lot of, I've read them all.
Yep. The other thing I want to point out is if you click this button, this bar here in the middle, you'll get a representation of what the ballot will look like that will be coming to you in the mail, as well as an explanation.
Where's it at?
Whether you're for or against.
Oh, how to vote that. Okay, there we go. Yep.
So you'll be able to read through that as well. And that'll walk you through how to vote, what the different votes mean, and then how to mail the ballot back to us.
Okay, as it stands right now, I live on Oak Park Boulevard, and I'm not looking forward to any more traffic on there. How much more traffic is going to be on Oak Park Boulevard?
There will be some traffic at arrival and dismissal times. It will be about 15 minutes to 20 minutes in the morning and about 15 minutes in the afternoon.
Okay. Because right now the traffic is minor, but I'm west of there, so I don't see that traffic except when I'm going west.
Right. I understand.
Hi, David. I'd like to just to jump in here and echo a comment I saw. It was the same as my question. So it sounds like we're being asked to vote potentially before the architect's plans are done or even some options are done. I was wondering if you could confirm that and then just maybe talk about the timeline for the architect coming up with options and the timeline for us voting.
Right. I would ask if you're not speaking to mute because there's a lot of feedback. I'm not able to hear the questions. I did hear the first part to your question of you're being asked to lift the deed restriction prior to the design. Yes, because it's almost like what came first, the chicken or the egg. As we stated, a school will be going to the site. The determination is going to be, is it 7 acres or is it 11 acres that we have to work with? To design the exterior space of an elementary school takes between 8 and 12 months, and we're just not there. But we can't wait 8 to 12 months into it to get the deed restriction lifted, because it's either we have to design it to 7 acres or we have to design it to 11 acres. And I understand that might not sit well because you want to be able to see what the space is. I will say that I've been in Ferndale now for 4 years, and I've seen some people utilize that space, but it's really been, I've never seen anyone play baseball at that field, and I'm here quite a bit. I promise you that what we design is going to be aesthetically nicer than what's currently there. I mean, and that's just, we're investing $25 million at that site, which will definitely be a beautiful building in a wonderful residential neighborhood that will only increase your property value.
Danya, I have a couple questions if I could.
Yes.
First, just a comment. I think that if I remember correctly, the deed restriction was put on, like you said, by the original developer, which I think was a Majestic company. I could be wrong about that, but if I'm remembering correctly, that's where that came from. But the site itself, I know when this was originally being proposed, there were a few different versions of the site that we looked at. And originally there was also the potential for, I believe like a pre-K site to be on there as well. Once the site is developed, once we have the park space, the new park space there, playground and everything, is that guaranteed to remain park space in perpetuity? Or is there a chance that that could be redeveloped at some point for another school space? And then I also had a question about the fence as well, but I'll let you in. Well, I'll just ask that really quick and then I'll be done. I also wanted to know if there's a possibility of replacing the fence line along the houses in the back there. And if so, if homeowners will have the option of having a gate installed.
So I'm going to take the first part of the question. The fence question I'll leave to Jamie Stottlemyre, our Director of Operations. The first part is we're through this bond work, we're investing quite a bit at our early childhood center, which is at a separate location. So I cannot see in the foreseeable future that site would be used anything but for a one school site. I can't see us putting two sites at the same building. We're building a 90,000 square foot facility. And we did originally have some discussions about a pre-K / elementary building, but we are already at capacity at lower, and we don't see at the elementary level, especially with the number of pickups, drop-offs, of having more than that number at that particular site. So, can I say with certainty when I retire or move on that would be the case? No, but I can tell you in the foreseeable future, the plan is for that to be the site of Ferndale Lower Elementary School. And we will honor the city's request to utilize as much space for green space and park space.
And then my other question was about the fence line.
Regina, what was the question about the fence line? Sorry, my wife was talking to me at the same time.
No worries. Hey, Jamie. I was wondering if the fence line, if there's a plan to replace the current fence line that's there. And if so, if residents will have the option to have a gate installed to be able to get out to the park space.
Yeah, we haven't got down to that detail, but that is something we can definitely look at. We haven't even decided on the location of the building. But I noticed, and I want to comment on this, I see a lot of comments about the mature trees that we're going to kill them off. And no, actually, that was one of our discussions today, was how do we maintain as many of the trees as we can? And then if we do, unfortunately, have to take down a tree, we would plant new ones to replace those. So the goal is to try and make the entire site aesthetically pleasing as possible. But we have not got down to the level of fences yet. But like Danya said, we'll keep everybody in the loop as we move along here.
So the next question in the chat was how many families will be, or how many homes will be voting? And what happens if there are not at least 50% of all involved homeowners returning their ballots?
So we got an updated list just now, about 30 minutes, no, even like 10 minutes before the start of this meeting. It's a little over 1,200 homeowners on the plat. So again, I don't remember the exact number. It's like 1,220 or 1,230. So again, we would need 50% plus one yes ballots. We would then submit that to the Registrar of Deeds to have the deed restriction lifted. If we weren't able to secure 50% yes votes plus one, then we would have to move forward with building the site on the current CASA site that includes the 7 acres of land.
The next question gets down to a timeline, and that is, when is the vote? So if you want to talk a little bit more about how this is not a traditional vote, so to speak.
Yeah, so Bill just showed you kind of an envelope that will be sent in a ballot that will be sent to each homeowner on the plat. They'll have time to read through that. We'll have a self-addressed envelope, obviously, for them to return the ballot. So our first try will just be a mail out to say, please vote. After that, of course, we're going to have people who don't respond, who are not sure, who need to ask questions and those types of things, and we'll certainly do that. And then we'll follow up most likely door to door with the rest of the residents to try and secure the 50% plus one vote.
So the next question from the chat has to do with, when will more, is there an official timeline as far as when we'll get more details as far as placement of playgrounds, more architect drawings, rough drafts, those types of things?
Yeah, I mean, in the next few months, we should be able to have, in the next 2 to 3 months, I think we should have some rough ideas of placement. But again, we're continuing with multiple options right now as we start the design work of the exterior spacing. That's why we're doing this concurrently, so that we're able to see where we're at in terms of the deed restrictions. So, I would assume in the next few months, and again, Tom and Doris, if I'm misspeaking, please let me know. But in the next few months, I do feel we should be able to give an outline in terms, but it's, and I don't mean to oversimplify it, but it's a school, it'll be a school with parking lots, a fire loop, playgrounds, some green space. Now, the fun part is when we get into the actual aesthetics to the exterior to the building, which will certainly include the public in some of that process. So no surprises. It's a typical elementary school. The voters did approve it at a rate of 80%. So I think people saw the need for it. But I understand protecting the green space in your neighborhoods. It's completely understandable.
So the next question, Dr. Bazzi, has to do with, if the deed restriction is removed, can a new one be put in place? And I'm paraphrasing here, but could a new one be put in place to essentially assure that nothing will, like, for example, the school district won't sell the land and everything be turned into condos, and then there's not a school, there's not a park, there's nothing. It's just sold to a developer and turned into condos 50 years from now.
So once the deed restrictions lifted, and if Oak Park sells us the land, I don't think they can impose any deed restrictions upon the land per the sale to a public school. What I can tell you though is that would be impossible to happen, because again, we're spending $25 million of taxpayers' dollars on that particular site. I can guarantee that no condos, and it will not be sold off to a developer. I mean, we can't make an investment like that for $25 million and then flip the land. So again, our goal is to have this school up for the next 100 years, long after I'm here, and hopefully impact many future generations of our students.
Were there, I'm going through the rest of the chat to search for more questions. As I'm doing that, if there's any other questions that folks have that they want to unmute and ask, feel free.
One thing I saw that people were objecting to, they were thinking that if they voted no, there would be no school built there. That is false. There is going to be a school built there regardless. Is that true?
Yeah, that's correct. We got voter approval on that in March of 2020. When we put it on the ballot, we showed the image that you had seen to show voters without the assumption of obtaining Jackson Park. So when we passed the vote, it was with the understanding that we have the 7 acres secured at our CASA site. But again, to ensure our design is optimal, traffic flow is optimal, this is why we're working with the city of Oak Park to be able to maximize the space.
Also, the biggest objection is people were those trees. And because I live on Majestic, but I don't back up to the park. I walk there a lot. Is the fencing that does back up to people's, the maintenance of the fencing has been, to say the truth, horrid. There are a lot of junk trees growing up there, and it's not good for the people who do back up to the park.
All right, so the next question from the chat is, and I think you addressed it earlier, but we had some folks join late. So if you could just reiterate, is there a potential groundbreaking date? How long is the protracted construction, and when would the school open?
I can answer that one.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and we had just talked about that today in our construction meeting, actually. So the project design would be completed sometime around next winter. The bid packs would go out, and then the actual construction would start in the spring of 2022, with the building being completed and ready for school in the fall of 2023.
And so, Jamie, this one, and this, I think this one's for both you and Dr. Bazzi. There's a question here: is, can we vote on multiple options when they're drafted by the architect? This person is specifically interested in what options are being considered for Jackson Park and the tree line, and they would kind of like to see what the final plan is before they would vote for it or against it. And they were happy with waiting some time, 3 to 5 months, to make the vote. But I know, again, that with our timeline, that becomes challenging.
Yeah, that's like Dr. Bazzi had said earlier, that's almost an impossibility, because we need to know if we're designing to 7 acres or the 11 acres. And that's a big part of this whole process, is how we're going to spread out the building, the parking lots, the playgrounds. So we really need to know that sooner than later, because we're in the very beginning of the design. And this is the most crucial part, is how we space everything out on that site. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, and the other thing I would add in as well, and something that Dr. Bazzi had stated earlier, is when we get to that point, there will be some community groups, correct, Dr. Bazzi, as far as like getting feedback from the community before the finalized plan gets put together, correct?
Yes. We'll reach out much in the same way that we've reached out for this meeting, to ensure that the aesthetics of the building is in line with what the community wants and what represents Ferndale Public Schools. But those types of things, we will work as a team to come to those, and we'll ensure that there's opportunities for city representation as well as neighborhood representation to have, to be included in those discussions for sure. And we'll certainly solicit feedback as we continue to design the space.
I have a question. Can I be heard?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So my question is, I guess, about the setback behind the backyards of Majestic Street, and between that and the land that the school will be built. There are city zoning laws about the length of the setbacks on property boundaries. So in designing the site plan, will the architects follow those setback laws?
Yes, they will. In fact, the site drawings that we were looking at today included all the setbacks already programmed in. So that's one of the first things that's going on the site plan. So they will be following that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I have a comment.
Yeah, go on, please.
Sorry, I got muted. I just, as I understand that there's difficulty with, the timeline with needing to know whether you're designing to 7 or 11 acres, but as one of the households that backs up to Jackson Park on Majestic with the mature trees, that in being forced to make the decision before seeing any sort of possibilities with what will be done with that property, it sort of puts us in a position of possibly just saying no because we don't want to basically have our choice taken away in the future where it's like, oh, well, the deed's gone and Ferndale schools can just do what they want with that property, including removing trees that are hundreds of years old, that provide a lot of privacy for the houses in that area and a lot of basically irreplaceable value. I understand that there's some junk trees, as somebody mentioned, along the tree line, but that's not the trees we're talking about. We're talking about oak trees that are hundreds of years old. And basically we would be voting to just entrust that they will not be taken down.
With construction, there comes surprises, and obviously we wanna stay true to a lot of the things that we're promising. Those are, again, the goal is to maximize the green space and to preserve as many trees as possible. Can we guarantee that in every scenario? No, we can't, and we don't want to misrepresent what we're trying to accomplish. At the end of the day, we service students who are in a building that is not meeting their standards. It's Ferndale Lower has, again, served us very well. The classroom spaces are small. We don't have a separate cafeteria and gymnasium. We have limited parking. We cause an immense amount of traffic issues due to its tight space. The voters, agreed that the investment in a new elementary school at that site is what's best for kids. And really that's what's guiding our decision. We are not going to make decisions that are not in the interest of our students and that are not in the interest of our community as well. So we want to build a building that you look at and say, wow, this is something that we can utilize. This is space that we can be a part of and enjoy. This is something we want you to take pride in, with it being in your neighborhood. This is something that we want you to look at and say, wow, this is servicing our students and really providing them a 21st century education. And we're 21 years into the 21st century. It's time for this building to be built. And really our students deserve it. So I understand the concern about green space. I understand the concern about tree, but we're not going to do just what we want to do. We are public servants. We serve our community. We do what the community wants, obviously within reason, with our capabilities. But our goal is to capture the essence of what the city has shared with us in terms of what's important of property owners. But again, all of this, it's so difficult because, as I said, we have to be able to, designing a building, unfortunately, is not just, especially the spacing, it's just not as simple as making a rough draft and saying, this is the space. That's when we show something now, and then by the end of the product, people are like, wait, that's not what you showed us back in February, because it's a long process to get to that final drawing. And so we don't want to show you things and then say, oh, look, it's different. What I can tell you is you're going to be with us each step of the way. We're going to stay true to the things that we promise. And, we're going to ensure that the space is maximized to have a beautiful site. As I said, again, and it's no disrespect to the current park space, but what we're going to be able to do with it is going to be far superior to what exists there today, because we have the investment of a bond because of you, not because the school district is special and figured something out. It's because you passed a bond that's allowing us to invest a significant amount of money at that site. So again, we're eternally grateful for that. That's a responsibility that Jamie nor I take lightly, nor Bill or the engineers and architects we work with. So we know we have a really big responsibility in investing that in the proper way.
Dr. Bazzi, if I could just really quick jump into, because I know that there's a lot of concerns about the trees. I'm not exactly sure where the property lines fall, but my understanding is that most, if not possibly all of those trees are currently on Ferndale land. Is that correct? Some of it may be Oak Park, but I think some of that is located already on Ferndale property.
Let me take a look.
And I also, while you're looking at that, I just wanted to point out too, because I know some folks are concerned about the baseball diamond, and if Kimberly's still on here, she can maybe speak to this too. But I think that if I remember correctly as well, a lot of the outfield of that diamond is on Ferndale property. So even if that land remained Oak Park land, it would not be able to remain as a diamond, is my understanding. And Kimberly, you can correct me if I'm saying that wrong.
No, actually that is accurate. And the other bonus to that is the money that the city receives for selling the parkland will be reinvested in our current parks and updating the ball fields that we currently have, so we can continue the programming that is on the site currently. The other thing I wanted to point out, there was some questions in regards to how close the building would be possibly to the residential neighborhood. And this is a use that's allowed through special land use. So what that requires is them to come to our planning commission, and there's certain guidelines that they need to follow for the city. And one of them is that the building can't be closer than 50 feet from residential property. So hopefully that alleviates some questions. I can put the other restrictions, a link to it in the chat box as well, if anybody wants to look at that.
And a lot of the trees I noticed on the map are up against some property lines as well. So again, we're not going to touch those trees because we're not going to build anything near the homeowner's land.
All right. If there's any final questions, if anybody wants to.
I do have a question.
Yes, go, please. Thank you.
Okay, what is the difference between the 7-acre and the 11-acre designs as far as what do you plan on doing? How many square feet? Yada, yada, yada.
The square footage would remain consistent. It just, again, it's spacing. So I don't know if you're familiar with Ferndale Upper Elementary, how they kind of have wings. Would it be more?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with it. I live just a few blocks away.
Did you go to Best?
Did I go to what?
Best Middle School? No?
No, I did not. No, I've only lived here 25 years.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, so basically that it would impact the design of the elementary school, whether it has wings, whether it's more, rectangular or square in shape. It would affect. It's not like we have a building design in mind and saying, okay, we're going to plop it down, whether it's 7 or 11 acres. It would impact the overall design, but also the spatial patterns. So do we have, and again, Tom or Doris, help me out here, but it would change the spatial patterns of what we're building.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess
I totally understand, because I am an engineer and I have to design it first and then present it to my clients. This is kind of backwards.
Yeah, the design of the building is not going to change in terms of its square footage. That building size is the same regardless of whether we build on the 7 acres or the 9 acres. The design that will change is the buildings will
occupy the exact same acreage as 7
square footage
versus 11.
The square footage of the building will be the same, regardless of whether it's the 7 or the 11 acres that it's on. The difference is that if we have the 11 acres, we can position that building in we have flexibility to position it in different spots that allow for potentially better access on the site for drives. It allows for us to enhance parts of that park that we can't touch right now in terms of some of the playground areas. So it really is about being able to touch the whole site. It doesn't change the building footprint square footage at all.
Okay.
And that's very Yeah, that's very
is
mathematical.
there any
We have a square footage, and that has a cost to it, and that is
Oh, yeah.
that is in the bond of what we're going to spend on that building. It's really just the freedom to put things. It will probably help traffic flow if we have more site, because we can take more people off of the roads onto the site. That's the kind of thing that we would do with really more of that site, and be able to develop outdoor play areas and nature things on the part that we don't own at this point.
Right. At the part you don't own, you can still put the play areas and park. Can you put parking on that?
We could. We probably wouldn't put parking on that side, though. We're going to be staying more towards the road side.
Which road?
The three
There's
roads
three of them.
the three roads that circumference the property. We aren't going to be putting parking up against the homes.
Well,
We want the
that's-
access off the roads.
yeah, right. But are you planning on parking on Oak Park Boulevard or Kensington? What is that? Kensington down there? I don't know the other street. What is the other street that's north-south?
Kenwood.
Oops. Kenwood. Okay.
Yeah, that's part of the site development that changes if we have, we're going to look at all kinds of options. We have right now, we access two roads with the site that the school owns now. And we would have access to one more to the south, that third road. I don't have the name of that one in front of me, which just gives us ability to spread traffic out more.
Okay. Well, this has been informative.
So go ahead.
Sorry, there's a couple questions I see coming in, like parking. How does this impact parking? Well, currently CASA, right? We have high school students who have to park, but from what I've told, they're very respectful. They try to stay out of the way. But at a K2 building, we'll have ample staff and visiting parking on the site. So it's gonna remove all of that traffic on the subdivision site in your residential areas. So luckily, as I pointed out, K2 students don't drive to school, so we're not gonna have that problem. As I said, there's gonna be the slight disturbance in the morning. But some people like it. My backyard is an elementary school, and I really enjoy it. I throw my kids over the fence. They go play on the playground. They come back. It really works out well. I wish they had a gate, though. I didn't think of that when they built the school. I just throw them over. But, the buses will have a dedicated bus loop that will take them off of the road so that they're not blocking traffic. So there will be a bus loop that's separate than the pickup. So right now, again, some of our we'll be able to separate pickup and drop off versus the bus loop, which will help with.
All right, so I just want to close by saying that thank you everybody for coming this evening. My information, Bill Good, I'm all over the website. If you have any specific questions, you can send them to myself or Dr. Bazzi, as well as Jamie Stottlemyre, our Director of Facilities. We're happy to get any questions that you guys have and answer them for you. Also, in the coming days, you will be receiving that ballot in the mail. It'll probably be about a week. Feel free to take your time to review it and return it. And then we will be in contact further with the community once we get more and more ballots received, and we will let you know the outcome when we have an ultimate outcome as well. Dr. Bazzi, did you have any closing thoughts?
No, I'm sorry. I see one question about where's the bus loop. Jamie, I mean, I don't know that we know for sure, but do we know on which side?
No, I mean, most likely it's going to be off of Rosewood, but that's going to be determined, during the final design. But initially, it's shown off of Rosewood.
Okay.
Excuse me, can I interrupt with one last quick question?
Of course.
I had submitted and it just didn't get addressed, so I thought maybe it fell between the cracks about the voting system that we'll be responding through. And is this like a Ferndale voting system, or what guarantees are there in terms of legitimacy, and are there monitors, etc.?
So unfortunately, we don't set the process. It's the Register of Deeds. So it's literally where we send ballots out, and return it, and we check them off. Once we have, all of the ballots returned, we submit those to the registrar of deeds. I know it sounds wonky, but that is the process that we've been told via our attorneys and to follow. It's how a deed restriction's lifted. I understand what you're saying, but I assure you that we all operate under a very high ethical code, and I'm not going to jail for anyone. So I would never take a ballot, change something. We do not operate under those assumptions. That's why we're taking the time to have these meetings, to answer these questions. Bill, I'm sorry to bother you, but can you share your screen and show kind of what the ballot looks like one more time so that people can see it and know what to expect when it does come in the mail?
Absolutely. Can everybody see this on the screen? Oh,
Uh-huh.
so this is what it will look like when you receive it in the mail. This is what the outside of the envelope will look like. And then as you open it up, you'll get a quick description as far as what we've discussed today, as well as the link to the website where you can go back, review the frequently asked questions document. There'll be a copy of this video there that you can watch as well to get any other, just to refer back if there's any questions you had to get answered for the final time. When you get the ballot, when you look at it, it will have your name, it'll have your property address. You'll need to sign it to certify that you are the owner of the property. And there will be a checkbox here that you're confirming, yes, I am the owner of the property, and yes, I do support lifting the deed restriction, or no, I do not support lifting the deed restriction. On the inside of that envelope, you're also going to receive, there will be an addressed and stamped envelope on the inside. You just place your ballot back inside, and then you put that in a mailbox, and it will come back to us. And then I also believe once we've received them, when we submit them to the registrar of deeds, that they do, I believe, maintain a copy of that, again, to give some sort of, legitimacy to it. So if anybody wanted to go back and review the ballots, review the signatures, and all those things, that I believe that is.
All right. As Bill Good shared, our names are plastered all over the website, emails. My name is Danya Bazzi, Bill Good, Jamie Stottlemyre. If you have questions, comments, concerns, keep them coming. If your neighbors or someone else has questions, please send them our way. Answering the last question in the chat, yes, we need 50% plus one homeowner to be able to lift the deed restriction. That is correct. Again, we are coming to you, thanking you, one, for the positive bond vote, but also advocating on behalf of our students. And as I said, I assure you, you're going to have a building that you can be proud of, that enhances your neighborhood, and that you'll be able to enjoy to some extent with your family, children, grandchildren, friends. So I thank you again for coming to this and asking great questions that will help us enhance our Q&A on our website, so people who weren't able to make it will get answers to similar questions that we know they'll have.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. And we look forward to hearing from you. Have a good night.